So as a follow-up, I kept having to unjam my window. It became real annoying, and it finally started jamming up like every day. And so I figured the motor is still good because it runs fine. I did get some creaking noises with it going up and down the window, as you can hear at the end of my previous video. So did a little research, and I think it's the regulator that went bad. So I bought a new one. There's the new one. And the power motor, window motor, hooks up right into here. So I'm going to attempt to take this out, and this whole big silver piece lifts out in one piece. And I think it's from, on the boot on one end, we've got a bolt there with a T-bit. Down at the other end we have the same thing. You can see it right in here. And underneath the door, in two places, there's these little panels, little covers that popped out, and exposing two big nuts that I can take off. And I think if I do that, this whole aluminum frame will lift out. So I'm going to try that. So I'm looking under the door here, and this is the place where one of the nuts was that I thought was holding the whole frame, window frame thing in the car. It's actually the two bolts on each side, so it's not that nut. So I'm going to take those two bolts off. I did take the two nuts off of the top, the left and right side, inside edge, outside edge of the door, and then these. Then I'll see if they'll get the frame will come out. Okay, even more. There's a bolt there on the front towards the body of the car, and a bolt there. So there's two more that go up into this aluminum frame. So taking those out. Then maybe. So is it coming out? No. And I think it's that guy right there. I'm pulling that one out. So is it coming out yet? Got that out with the Allen key. It's still not coming out. And then I discovered that I took the nut off the end of, on top of this where you can see it. Yeah, there we go. Took the nut that was on the end of here, and then you have to put in a T-bit in the end and loosen it up. Screw that whole thing in. Hopefully you can understand. That's taking the pressure off of this metal here, moving that flat part in, so now it's looser. Still not quite there yet. Okay, right in the center of this frame, under the door, there was yet another plastic access panel, and there's another nut in there to remove. Okay, after undoing that last nut out from the access panel underneath the door, and then I've unplugged the wiring harness from the power window motor and pulled it off all the clips so it's free. Now the whole frame is moving inside the door freely. So I'm ready to lift it out of here and put a new regulator on. Okay, that's the whole frame assembly removed from the door. I couldn't find any information on how to do this repair, so I'm kind of winging it here. But I watched some on Audi A4 regulators, power window regulators, and the next step is to remove the glass, so I'm going to do that. It looks like the glass is held on these 4 points, those two in the back and two in the front, and I've got a T30 bit, fits right in there. Pull those out and pull the glass off. Okay, the glass is off. I actually only had to remove two of those. It was the upper T-bits, the T30s. I loosened the lower, and that allowed me to just pull the glass out. And so I'm at this point looking at this, I'm like, what's the next step? So I laid the new regulator next to it so I could kind of get a feel for what it takes to take it apart. And on the lower side there's a little hole there and there. Up top here I have one hole there and two on the top, and then on this side one more. So it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts, and I'll have the old one out and be able to put the new one in. And I have to be careful to keep it oriented like this so I don't get this piece underneath the other one, get this end twisted. You can see I've got it the right way. That one goes over the top. Anyway, so I'm going to take out those bolts on this one. They're on the outside of the car, on the top side, and on the bottom side, you got to go around on the other side, flip it up the piece over, take those pieces out. They look like a real small T-bit. So it turns out those were actually pop rivets, and I had to drill them out. I used a 3/16 drill bit, and that one right there didn't quite come out, so I got to finish it up. But got the rest of them removed. So I've laid out the new window regulator here part on the door frame. Made sure that this piece went behind. That's where the motor hooks up on the other side, on the inside of the door. I put one rivet in. This is a 3/8 inch rivet. I'm going to put one in right here. There's a little rivet. Fits in like so. And you line up these holes. That, and then drop my rivet. Put the rivet tool on it and give it a few squeezes until it pops off. And there we go. Piece comes out. Got a few more of those to do, and it'll be all mounted and ready to go back in the car. Now there's one rivet here that when the part came, this carriage that hooks to the window, to the glass, it was all the way at the top up against this stop. And so you couldn't get to that rivet. All I did was, once I got a couple rivets in, just hand slid this down, and slide it back. Show you how. You just work it by hand, just move it. Put it back in the all the way upright position because that's the way I took it out of the car. I don't know if that makes any difference, but the top's all done. I'm going to flip it over and put the rivets in the bottom, and it'll be time to go back in the car. Okay, I have the regulator riveted into place, and now I'm putting on the bracket where the motor attaches, that piece there. I've got the holes aligned, or I did, up top here, and these short screws go in from this side. And that'll complete putting it on the whole regulator part onto the door. Once the rivets are in place, this is the back end of the door on the outside. This is the corner that had 4 rivets. One thing not to forget is this little part that clips over the top of this roller. Make sure you get that back in place. There's another part that I almost missed. This is the old regulator, and there's this clip on here, and there's a little hollow spot in the slot there for it to clip into. Take that off, put it on the new part on the door. This is the foot that sits in the bottom of the door. And it goes on this bottom. There's this adjustment screw, which I haven't touched, that sets the in and out. This adjustment screw. And on the head of it, there's a channel. It fits right in that slot, just like that. So, let's see if I can see it. That's probably the best view of it. There we go. Yep. Focus on it. It slides in like that. You want it like that, then put the knot on here to hold it all in place, and then drop it in the car. That way that will stay lined up. Alright, now it's time to put the glass in. So I've got my parts laid out. The regulator has these 2 carriages that carry the glass up and down. The bottom parts are a little different because it holds the bottom piece of the glass. I did a little investigative work. I couldn't remember if this green disc went, if the glass went in first and the green disc after, or what. I could tell by this one that it went in this way by the old marks on it. So the green discs go in first, then the glass on top of that, and then these pieces, flip them over, and they go on like that. And there's a little piece here that will go down in that corresponding hole. Make sure you got it in the right direction. So what I'm going to do is lay the glass on here, put this piece on, and get it started to kind of hold the glass in place. It goes into this track as well. Once I've got that all in place, start buttoning it up. Time to put the motor back in. You see this little geared part here in the center. Marries up in the regulator there. Just put it on. Put in the, see, it goes something like that. I'll line up the bolts. Plug it in. Those are the bolts to put it on with. And we'll see where we're at. And the motor's back in. Plugged into the wiring harness. Some of these places where the wire is attached to the little clips didn't survive. This car is 12 years old now. So I'm going to get zip ties to put around and hold it in place there and here and all these points where the wire is supposed to be held so that it doesn't get in the way of any of the mechanisms. And then it'll be time to button it up. Okay, I've got it mounted back in here. Zip ties are holding the wiring harness in the right places. One little word to the wise here. I had this wire coming out across the regulator cable housing here and back in. That's wrong. You can see back here there's a little place where it mounts to. So don't do that. The other thing I learned from this whole project is these bolts on the end. They are there's several of them. Let's see, there's 5 of them that are meant to just adjust the whole window back and forth, up and down, to get it fitted into the body of the car, because there's no frame on the top of this, so it's got to marry up to the body just right. So when you do this project, all the nuts that, let's see, can I get a shot of it, that look like that, it's got a T-bit on the inside for the threads, and on the outside it's like a 20 millimeter. It's pretty big. Do not turn the inside of those if you can help it, because that'll keep your adjustment the same. You may have to loosen it a little bit to be able to slide it up through these slots to remove the unit. So these top 2 might be the exception to that, but the bottom 3 you shouldn't move them at all. I'm hoping that I got mine, that I didn't mess up the adjustment on mine and it'll fit in and I won't have any water leaks. Alright, I really messed this up. The alignment was way off when I put the whole thing back together, and I found a good post online on a message board on what I did wrong and what I should be doing, so you can learn from my pain. Before you take the glass out the first time, take a Sharpie and draw a line around these guys so you know exactly where they are, all 4 of them. That way when you put it all back together, all you have to do is slide these carriages all the way up to the stop, this stop, and put it on the marks and you should be good. So I'm getting the window fitting much better now. I've remounted it to the little cassettes that carry it up and down, put the frame back in, and I'm adjusting the 2 T-bits on the top, front, and back to adjust it forward and back on the car. Also, there's there's an adjustment bolt under there and an adjustment bolt under here. And I loosened this one because there's a 3rd one there, but I didn't want it to interfere. I didn't want it to like rock back and forth as I was adjusting it, so I moved it up out of the way. Once I get it dialed in, then I'll move it back down to where all three of those are touching. But if you see now, the line looks pretty good, and I use the other side of the car as a reference to see how this should be fitting. So hopefully doing a fit this way will fix it.